Hello! Hope you're having a great day. After an eventful wildcard weekend with some great performances, we turn to the divisional round of the playoffs, having the Eagles and Chiefs finally entering the fray, making things much more interesting. So, let's get into it. With the Jaguars pulling off an incredible comeback win against the Chargers after being down 27-7 at halftime, all the while having a tough start to the game with Trevor Lawrence throwing 4 interceptions in the first half. To then redeem those mistakes with 4 touchdowns and a win really shows the fight in this team and the leadership of Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, and the defense, winning 31-28. It all seemed to change as soon as the Jags defense finally was able to stop the Chargers to force them to kick a field goal, making it 27-0. Right after the LA Chargers picked off Trevor Lawrence for a fourth time the drive before for them to be in that position. After that, Jamal Agnew had a great return on kickoff after being tackled at midfield, setting up the incredible drive for Trevor Lawrence and the offense for marching down the field and finishing that drive by completing a dime to tight end Evan Ingram. The Chargers as a whole just seemed to have a meltdown in the second half, with the offense only scoring 3 points in the half after scoring 27 in the first. With all that, the Jags took advantage, with the Chargers offense only drives in the second half compared to the first was a punt, a field goal, another field goal, which ended up missing, and another punt, which that last punt gave the Jags offense enough time to kick the game-winning field goal. For the number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs, they've had a great year as usual, ending the season with a 14-3 record. Even though all last offseason, a lot of people thought that the Kansas City offense couldn't be the same without star receiver Tyreek Hill and his freakish speed that can take the top off of any defense. But the offense is still actually pretty great because of the guy who's starting at quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has had an amazing MVP caliber season, one that will most likely win him his second award of his career, having 5,250 passing yards, 45 total touchdowns, and a completion percentage of 67. With Travis Kelce still on offense, he still had a phenomenal season with 110 receptions, 1,300 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns, continuing to make his claim for the greatest of all time of tight ends. With the addition of Juju Smith-Schuster, he's been a good pickup replacement for Tyreek, having 78 catches for 933 yards and 3 touchdowns. On the defensive side, Chris Jones has had also a phenomenal defensive MVP type season with 15.5 sacks and 17 TFLs, leading the defense in both stats. This matchup really reminds me of a playoff game 2 years ago that happened that was played in Arrowhead Stadium when a young Baker Mayfield-led Browns traveled to play Kansas City after they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers the week prior for their first playoff win since 1994. The Chiefs did go on to win that contest with an incredible play by the Chiefs offense on 4th down to seal it. I think that it's going to be a high-scoring affair that'll come down to the quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks are going to be slinging it, but I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to be outgunned here by a young Trevor Lawrence. So similar to that Chiefs-Browns playoff game, I see the Chiefs winning and moving on to the AFC title. For our next matchup to determine the AFC title is the rematch that the whole NFL has been waiting for since Week 17 on Monday Night Football. The Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. With an already emotional night, if we get to see Damar Hamlin show up on the sideline for that game, that building is going to be rocking. Both of these teams were able to get it done in very different close games at home. For the Bengals, they had a hard-fought game on Sunday night when they played the Ravens. I previously thought that it was going to be an absolute blowout, but with the divisional matchup and knowing each other so well, the Ravens and Tyler Huntley was able to keep this game close throughout, with them tying the game 17-17. The only reason why they lost this game was because of the great heads-up play by the Bengals defense and defensive end Sam Hubbard. The Ravens attempted a quarterback sneak to score in the fourth quarter on the 1-yard line. As Tyler Huntley dived over the line of scrimmage to score, a player knocked the ball out right before it could cross the plane, and bounced right into the hands of defensive end Sam Hubbard. He instantly ran it back for 98 yards for a scoop and score. Without that heads-up play, the Ravens could have pulled off that upset because the Bengals were struggling a little bit against the Ravens' D. With Joe Burrow being sacked 3 times and the Bengals not being able to run the ball on offense. But Joe Burrow and the Bengals were able to survive 24-17, move on from Wild Card Weekend to play the Bills. For the Buffalo Bills, they also surprisingly barely survived their game against the Miami Dolphins 34-31. After a dramatic fourth down play that was failed by the Miami Dolphins when Skylar Thompson missed a pass to Mike Gesicki. On that day, Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins put on an amazing performance when all thought, even myself thought, that the Bills would absolutely win in convincing fashion. Josh Allen had a very inconsistent day, even though they won. On one hand, he did throw for 352 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, but on the other hand, he did throw 2 interceptions to help keep the Miami Dolphins in the ballgame. Both Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis had a day, with both of them getting over 100 receiving yards and Gabriel Davis getting a receiving touchdown as well. For their game, both of these teams did struggle during last weekend, with Cincinnati struggling more, but this will be a rematch that everybody on and off the field will be so emotional, not only for what's at stake, but also for what happened to DeMar. I don't see the Bills losing this one with all the momentum from their shootout win and all the momentum and emotion. So I see the Bills facing the Chiefs in the AFC title. For the NFC side, we first discussed the matchup between the 2 red-hot teams coming into this one, the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks had a close game until halftime. Then San Francisco absolutely dominated the Seattle Seahawks the entire second half, with the final score being 41-23. Brock Purdy seemed to struggle a little bit during the second quarter, missing some key passes. But when the second half came around, he seemed absolutely flawless as usual and performed out of his mind for the game, recording 332 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown as well in the middle of the third quarter. Starting wide receiver Deebo Samuel had 133 yards and a receiving touchdown to pair with Brock Purdy for the day. Running back Christian McCaffrey had a monster day on the ground with 15 carries for 119 yards, along with 2 catches for 17 yards and a receiving touchdown. He also had a major 68-yard rushing play to help set up his receiving touchdown from Brock Purdy. The Niners defense had 2 takeaways from Geno Smith in the second half, while only allowing 1 score in that half as well. The main reason Seattle couldn't keep up with the San Francisco 49ers was too many unnecessary penalties. During the biggest drives for Seattle and the biggest plays in those drives would be called back because of an ineligible man downfield penalty on 3 different plays. Those penalties mean an offensive lineman cannot travel 2 to 3 yards past the line of scrimmage on a passing play. This can happen a lot when you do run RPOs in your offense, which is what a lot of offenses do nowadays. But the offense did also have 3 false starts. With penalties like this and turning the ball over, it's the perfect recipe for disaster. And that's what happened in the second half for the Seattle Seahawks. The Cowboys also dominated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers during Wild Card Weekend, with the final score being 31-14. The game was honestly already over by the start of the third quarter when the Cowboys pushed their lead to 24-0. The game was honestly almost as bad to watch as watching my poor Seattle Seahawks crumbling against the 49ers. Tom Brady played by far one of his worst games of his career, throwing 35 of 66 attempts, having 351 yards and 2 touchdowns. While those numbers look great, he played absolutely terrible, throwing miss after miss, not finding any chemistry with any of his receivers for a majority of the game. Like I said from last week's video predicting this game, this is almost a mirror-like season for Tom Brady, comparing to his last season with the New England Patriots when he threw an interception to end his time there as well. With the offseason of Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, there is a lot of questions that need to be figured out. For Dak Prescott, on the other hand, he looked nearly perfect during this game, going 25 of 33 for 305 yards and 4 touchdowns with a rushing touchdown as well. Both receivers Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb had a receiving touchdown, and tight end Dalton Schultz also had 2 of the other touchdowns. Dak and the Cowboys needed this win against the Tom Brady Buccaneers to prove to himself and to a lot of other fans that Dak Prescott can still play. I'm sure that he has all the confidence in the world to continue that style of play. For the game, it's looking like a good game on paper. Looks like it could be a close defensive nail-biter, with both defenses looking really good coming into it, along with their quarterbacks playing lights out. But I don't see Brock Purdy and the 49ers slowing down. They had adversity and little struggles last week, but absolutely demolished the Seahawks and looked flawless doing so. Dak Prescott has had way too many inconsistencies this season to say they'll win, and I feel like DeMeco Ryans and that defense in San Francisco is going to overwhelm Dak and the Dallas Cowboys. To finish off the divisional round of the playoffs, we'll have the divisional rematch between the New York Football Giants and the number 1 seed Philadelphia Eagles. The New York Giants won an insane game in Minneapolis, pulling off an upset against the Vikings, who were favored at -7 before the game, with the final being 31-24. The Giants' offense looked like an absolute powerhouse in the game, with no stopping whatsoever. Danny Dimes went 24-35, 301 yards, and 2 touchdowns with no turnovers. Other pieces on offense, like star running back Saquon Barkley, also had a monster game with over 100 yards total, 53 rushing and 56 receiving, as well as scoring a rushing and receiving touchdown. Rookie receiver Isaiah Hodgins had a phenomenal playoff debut with 8 receptions for 109 yards. It's not like the Vikings played terribly by any means at all. Kirk Cousins had a great day, too, with 273 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, as well as going 31 of 39. Mainly connecting with TJ Hawkinson having 129 receiving yards and 10 catches, since Justin Jefferson only had 47 receiving yards off of 7 catches. The Giants went into Minneapolis and balled out and have so much confidence going into this next game. For the number 1 seed Philadelphia Eagles, they finished their season with a 14-3 record and won the NFC East. Leading them is quarterback Jalen Hurts. While missing 2 games this season with an injury, he's been having an MVP caliber season with 3,700 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions, along with 760 rushing yards and 13 rushing touchdowns. Truly an incredible season. With an addition of A.J. Brown from the trade with Tennessee in this last offseason, he was a massive piece to the offense, recording 88 catches for 1,500 yards and 11 touchdowns, earning himself a Pro Bowl nod. During Devontae Smith's second year in the NFL, he still proved to be a productive and future star, with 95 receptions, 1,200 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. On the defensive side, Hassan Reddick has been another great pickup for the Eagles from this last offseason, recording a career-high 16 sacks and 26 quarterback hits. He was all over the quarterback this year, doesn't matter who it was. And the secondary of the Eagles have played lights out this season. Safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson led the defense on picks with 6 interceptions, while not making the Pro Bowl. Veteran cornerback Darius Slay is a Pro Bowler this year, with 3 interceptions and 14 pass breakups, along with newly acquired James Bradbury from the Giants, who also had 3 picks and 17 pass breakups. For the game, the Eagles have swept the Giants this season, with their last contest being the last week of the season, where Jalen Hurts made his first start in 2 games since his injury. He had to play because the Eagles were at risk of losing their number 1 seed at the time. He did not have the best game in their win, but that was mainly for the fact that it was his first start after not playing a couple weeks. The Giants will have the advantage in that they played an incredible game this last weekend, but they'll have to play in one of the loudest places, a place that they went and got demolished in earlier this season, Philadelphia, which is why I think Daniel Jones will get overwhelmed by Hassan and the defense. Well, that's another preview for the playoffs this weekend. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching again. Stay tuned for the conference titles next week. Please like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments, and hope y'all have a good one.